welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I'm Brenda, and today we're finally at the end of the Orphan Block Challenge. There will be a slideshow next week with all the quilts that we've made, but this quilt is my last idea. I had a few other ideas, and I may post them later and link them back to the Orphan Block Challenge, but I'm done. I've gone through lots and lots of blocks, and I'm kind of finished with this project. I need to move on to other things, like the psychedelic snowflake that's coming up as a solo along. So this will be the last of the series, but there may be other ones added on at a later point. Now, as always, we do a shout out. Adam from Adam Sews is not expecting this shout out. So if you go check him out, and his YouTube channel is going to be in the show notes below, you're going to see him doing all sorts of fun, wonderful things, right? So go tell him that I sent you. You know, tell him Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore sent me. And, you know, it'll be such a fun surprise for him. Now, the other thing is, in those show notes, you're going to find our Facebook group. Yes, it's growing quickly. We're making use of the rooms. We're doing fabric swaps. We're sharing pictures. We're asking questions. It's so much fun. We also have the Zoom sew dates, which is once a month. That is not part of Facebook at all, but you can come and join us there. And the dates are listed out from now until the end of December, and then we'll put more dates in later. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is we're getting ready to do this as a block of a month. So that will come in pretty quick here too, so it'll be like once a month, and there's like 6 different blocks, right? But you get to play around with them 3 different ways, so that'll be fun as well. And finally, like, share, and subscribe. This is what's going to help us out and keep us going. Okay, so come on in. We have a bunch of filming to do here now over the next few days, because it does take a while to get this next idea done. But it eliminates so many orphan blocks. So come on in, let's get to the sewing. Okay, so we're at the sewing machine here now. I'm using 2-inch strips. You could use 2.5-inch strips, but I wanted to get rid of my 2-inch strips. And I've pulled quite a few of them out. Actually, I've pulled them all out. So I've got quite a handful here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a strip, and where we start with this is we just cut off the selvage edge. And now when you're working with 2-inch strips, you need 2-inch wide pieces, right? This is quite a bit longer, but wide. I have 2-inch squares. I have 3.5-inch pieces, or 3.5-inch wide pieces. And then I have 6.5-inch blocks, or things I have made into 6.5-inch blocks with coping strips. So all of this is going to get added into this jelly roll race as we go along. But first, I'm just going to show you how to put this part together. So what I do is I take one of my little blocks and I run it through, and I don't have any leader enders here, so I guess I'm just going to have to use this. And what I'll do on the next one is I don't want the same fabric here. So what I'll do is I'll just move this fabric to the bottom and pull another fabric that's purplish, because that's what I've picked out. Oh, this one's already been cut. Good. But not this side. Okay. So basically you're cutting off the salvages and joining them straight. Now I don't have a lot of blocks here that are 2-inch and that are purple. So what's going to happen is I'm going to end up just butting these up, you know, right up against each other. I'm just going to take a long one because I can. So you want to mix up these textures, right? Like, you don't want a whole bunch of stuff, and you do want some space in between them. Okay, so I'm just going to throw this off the edge so it doesn't look as cluttered. Now, okay, and we just keep going along like this until we use up all these, right? All of these little things. It's one quick way of making orphan blocks fit and work. And you're going to end up with a very unique effect on here, because I've already done this with a couple of them. I did put all my warm colors into one, and that actually took a very long time to do. I sewed for a month, and it was a month where it was the middle of summer and it was busy and it was crazy and it was like, oh my goodness, I'll never get this done. But, I mean, I did eventually get it all done. Now, when you're working with batiks, you want to make sure you go all the way to the end and then flip it over, because you don't want to be sewing, because batiks are really hard to read because they all look the same. You know, these little hourglass blocks, they're from cutoffs of other, you know, like a binding and whatnot, right? So, and this I want to take to the bottom. Okay, we got some tulip pink now coming in. And we'll just take that. And we just keep going like this until we go through all of them. And then, like I say, when we run out of these, then we just butt them straight up against each other and to get a cool effect. So I'll show you what I do next. So I'll finish up what I'm doing here, and then I'll show you what I do next. Okay, so now I've got all these little squares, these 2-inch squares done, because I'm working with 2-inch strips. Now I ran out. So what I did is I just sewed them like this. I just butted them straight across and away. Now in that pile, I did find some part strips. So I am using them as well, because I'm going to offset my seams that way. See, now you're, you know, if you used all with the fabric, you're going to have all your seams match up, but I want my seams offset. So what I do, right side to right side, is I put this under, just like so, and I sew along now to make my first row of my, or the first bit of quilting I'm going to do on the jelly roll rig. Now I have tried to fold open these, but I mean, if they're not on line open, that's fine too, right? I mean, it's just the way it is, right? I mean, you gotta, sometimes fabric works best if it's folded open, sometimes it works best if it's folded down. So I'm just gonna whip along here right to the end, and I'll show you, you know, and you just, once you get to the end, you just clip it across, right? So that you can open it up. And there's lots of videos that show how to do just plain jelly rolls. But basically I'm adding length. So I've got quite a bit of sewing here to do. So I will come back when I get to the end, and I'm ready to put the next round of blocks in that are 3.5 inches wide. So, okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. We sewed to the end, and we have this happening. Don't worry about it. I mean, we did, you know, if they touch, they touch. Don't, it'll be fine. There's going to be so much going on in this quilt, you won't notice this. So what I've done is I grabbed the other end, the end that I started with, and this is what, you know, this is what it looks like. So now I've got my pile of 3.5 inch squares. Now let's see if I can line this up better so you can see what's going on. Oops, I should get the 6.5 ones off the table. That would make more room. Okay, so what I'm going to do is every piece, I'm just going to cut as straight as I can across, and I'm going to fold this, okay, so that it looks like this, right? And we're just going to start adding little blocks in, and okay. So now I've got that one block in. You're going to add your, like if you're working with 2-inch strips on this step, you're going to be adding 3.5 inch strips, or 3.5 inches tall, right? Because they might, or long, because they might not be full width. Now you want to make sure that you just keep going forward on this. Now what I have done is I've lined my stuff up. So this area here, where this ends here, and where this begins, I cut somewhere in here, which this looks just perfect. And I'll just bend over my fabric, and I'll put this down, and I'll open this up. Okay, I'll open it up, and we'll put another block in. Now some of my little 3.5-inch blocks are the same, so I've lined them up, and what I'm doing is, if anything's too much the same, I put it to the bottom, because I'm trying to mix these up the best I can, right? So, this is, yeah, there's not a lot of room on this table when you get all this stuff on there. So when I was doing the bigger one where I took all the warm colors and put them out, it just got unwieldy very quickly, and it was huge. And it even took a long time. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna break this down by color, because I have lots of blue, I have lots of purple, I have lots of green. It's, you know, and as we go through them, this is how we're going to get rid of it. Now, I did not, by any stretch of the imagination, get rid of them all. So now I find the next piece is between here, this piece, and this piece. So I'm going to just fold this over. And you kind of line it up, and it gives you a nice straight edge to cut with. So this gets cut, this gets moved. Okay, now I'm going to add this piece. There, oops, and this is a little, it's taller this way. See, in that way too now, if they're not wide enough for 3.5, but they're tall enough, you just switch the direction that you're going, right? Makes it so much easier. Okay, next up is, okay, and then you just keep going like this, and you sew them on and in, and you work along. Like, that's why I say I'm mixing up my little blocks, and I'll just be working on those little blocks until I get them all sewn in. And I might have to, because there's lots of them, I might have to go do this a couple of times. So I don't necessarily want my block where I'm placing it between here and here, right? Like this area here and here, right? I don't necessarily want it in the middle. I do want it offset a little bit, right? But I want it, you know, I at least want to break it up that way to distribute those little blocks. Okay, there we go. And we put the next set of little blocks in there. And I have a bunch of these that are quite dark, so that'll be fun in there too, you know, so it'll be lovely, it'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing this, and then I'll show you what I do with this after I get all of these sewn in. Okay, I've got all the 3.5-inch blocks on this step. Now if you're using, I'm using 2-inch strips, right, for my Jelly Roll waist. If you're using 2.5-inch strips, all of your 4.5-inch blocks or tall are now in your Jelly Roll, right, of your color choice. Now how you start this out, you match up one end and the other end, and you sew a good 1/4 inch. You know, you're not too skinny, you're not too fat, nothing's going on weird with your 1/4 inch seam. And you just sew them together. You just sew the entire length together. Now, this is not hard, and I'm not going to sit there and go through every one of these blocks like this and the whole length, because this video would get ridiculously long. But it's a very quick, fast way to use up blocks. Now, because of the path of least resistance, some of these blocks, the block itself goes this way. I've got blue all over my hand. So what you do is you just go with it. You keep all those blocks a certain way, and you just sew them together. So that's where we're at. So I'll come back to you with the next step. I know this seems to be like a lot of steps, but I'm going to be putting in the 6.5-inch block on my, because I am using 2.5 or 2-inch strips. I'm sorry. The next one will be putting in my 6.5-inch blocks. If you're using 2.5-inch strips, you're going to be putting in 8.5-inch blocks. So it's kind of one of those fun little things. It's whatever color you want, or whatever style or size you want, you can do this. So let me just cut away to the next step. I'll get this whole length sewn, and at the end of the length I cut it across the end, and then I started then I start adding in blocks, okay? So I'll be back. Okay, so I'm putting in 6.5 inch unfinished blocks right now, and what has happened is I've trimmed all of these blocks to 6.5, or made them 6.5 inches tall and put them in. And I just about got done all of them except for this last one here, and I'm just going to quickly cut this. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. It does have to be straight. So when you're cutting them, there we go. I'm just going to quickly use your ruler. Get this out of the way. There. Okay. Get this all turned around the right way so I can sew it. There we go. Now I have a cute little Ohio star, and I know I'm good because this had to be trimmed, and I'm going to lose every one of my points, but I mean, it is what it is, and hopefully the person that gets it won't be too hard and too critical on what I'm doing, but yeah, there we go. So you sew one side, there we go, and then now we put in the last bit here. And you want the same color fabric here as here, right? So you don't get, turned around and all this stuff. So you line it up. There we go. And there. Okay. So there we go. Alrighty. So you would continue doing all of this throughout your piece, your long, snake thing that's coming, until you're out of 6.5 inch squares. Okay, we'll get to the next part now. So here we are, we're sewing the strips together again. Now, I don't have any 12.5 unfinished purple blocks for this quilt. So what I'm going to do, if you have, you would add them in the same way you did with the 2 inch, the 3.5, and the 6.5 inch, right? The 6.5 inch ones. And you would just keep adding them in. Don't worry about it. I would check to make sure you're not sewing something, or when you're cutting, you get to the end, right? You're going to be cutting this. And just make sure you're not cutting through a block. If you are cutting through a block, add extra fabric. That's always a good way to do it. Now, since I don't have any 12.5 inch purple blocks, I'm just going to keep folding this over until I get it big enough that I can make it into a quilt. Now, the problem with this method is you don't know how big it is because, I've just added all of my purple strips. But it's going to be either a couch throw or it's going to be a twin size. So I'm already, that's a nice charity quilt, and it is very eclectic. So without further ado, I'll just keep sewing, and I'll meet you back at the sewing machine for our big ta-da moment. Okay, so here we are. This is our big ta-da moment. Now this is going to be the last instructional video for the Orphan Block Challenge. Come back next week and we're going to put together a slideshow of all of the quilts that we made, and hopefully this one. You guys are asking what I was doing with all those cute little 4 patches. Well, I didn't get it done because, we've got other sewing we got to get done too. So I will get this done and it will be part of it. But it's just basically a checkerboard quilt, which I thought would be really cute for somebody. It's going to be a twin size. Now, this is the one we actually did. We actually sewed this one for you. And this is the Jelly Roll Race method. So here we go. We've got all this going on. And then the bottom, right? Now that makes a twin size quilt. So that was actually that was a lot of fun to make and put that one together. And we've got all the little piecing and everything. Now remember, you can do this with 2.5 inch strip stuff as well. It's just so you're using 2.5 inch blocks, 4.5 inch blocks, 8.5 inch blocks, 16.5 inch, all unfinished. And they'll work great for you. So Aaron will catch that one. Now we did one in green. And this one ended up being quite big. So excuse me for struggling with it. And this one is, we did the same thing with a 2.5-inch strip. Now this is doubled, so this is a queen size. And this came out absolutely gorgeous. Now it's 8, or this is a, yeah, no, this is a twin. This is a twin. And this is, I forget how big it is, but it's like huge. And we just played with greens and we had a lot of fun with them. And we did ones with all of the warm tone colors, like your oranges, your reds, your pinks, your yellows, reds, orange, yeah, all the warm colors. So that's part of it. You'll be able to see this better in the slideshow. Okay. Okay, there's the other half. Okay, and there's another bit. So these are very eclectic, very different, very big. That's a queen size. And so is this one. Now I did add in my blacks to my warm colors, just to add a bit of drama. So there we go. We've got some blocks there. And we did do some major hitting. And we also got rid of some longer panel stuff. Oh wait, it's on this side. We got rid of some longer panel stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. Okay. And this side here, and we even have some Japanese ladies. So we had, this one was a lot of fun to put together. So now, okay, this is another Orphan block, and this one is, like I say, mine normally are twins, but they're a little on the oversized twin. So this is one we assembled by Rose. Like I say, we're going to take pictures of these this afternoon, so you'll be able to see them, you know, better. But you might recognize a few of these blocks too from shows, right? So that's there. And oh my gosh, the last one. Okay, this is also another one by Rose, done by Rose. So there's one side, and there's one side, and the bird block, when we were learning how to sew curves. There's just a lot of fun little blocks in here. Okay, we have a lot of photos to take in order to bring you that slideshow next week, New Mouth first day. And until we see each other again, I hope you have an absolutely fabulous week ahead and everything goes great for you. Okay, you take care. All right, bye. My husband and I would love to thank you for all of the amazing people that we have met along this crazy YouTube adventure that we've been having. We do free speaking engagements too, so if you're part of a guild and they're looking for, you know, people to talk and, you know, and chat with, you know, in their monthly meetings, tell them that I'm doing free ones just to help the guilds out, because it's been a tough time for the guilds as well. You know, share, like, and subscribe with your friends. You know, make sure that they're, you know, they get the word out on us. That's, I mean, that's the best way you can do to help us out. So until we meet again, I want to thank you. Okay, goodbye.